Internet. Welcome to episode number 250. That's right, 250 of the Comic Watchers Show. He's Chad, I'm Matt. This is our show, and we like to watch comics. So, we have got, and we can hear him, but for whatever reason, we're having a technical difficulty and cannot see him. Dean Haspiel is with us this evening. How are you, Dean?
Hi, I'm waving at myself and you guys because I can actually see myself. This is bizarre.
Oh my gosh. Well,
I blame Elon Musk.
we can, yeah, let's
That's
do
good.
it. Absolutely.
Or not Elon, but one of his kids.
One of his
You know,
minions.
One of his minions. There you go.
Yeah.
They're messing with us
Yes.
for some reason.
One of the 19 to 21 year olds he's got running around in the federal government right now doing his bidding.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah, we're already going into politics, and we haven't even gotten started. Oh my God, I love it. Well, Dean is here this week to talk about his career and his unique approach to comics, and his latest comic called Chest Face. Chest Face. You did hear that correctly. Dean, tell us a little bit about your comics origin. How did you get started with the love of the medium? How did you get started in comics?
Oh my God. I've been on planet Earth for 57 years. I'll be 58 at the end of May. I think I fell in love with comics at age 12. And then that's when I became otherwise unemployable because all I wanted to do was comics. I've had tons of other, jobs here and there. Actually, one of my favorite jobs was working as a waiter at a restaurant in Soho. I'm a fairly social person, so sitting at the art table by myself a lot is not one of my favorite things,
Yeah.
But you got it in order.
Dean, did we lose you? Uh-oh.
Wait,
Dean?
am I back?
Yeah, you're there.
And I'm still black screen.
Yes.
On your end.
You are a disembodied voice.
Wow. Okay. So this is so strange. Okay. Anyway, I've talked about my quote origin of comics, but for your audience that may not, which is probably most likely haven't heard of me, my dream was to draw the Fantastic Four one day.
Mm-hmm.
And Chad might want to turn his sound up. Is there something going on there, Chad? I think maybe we're all having technical difficulties.
No kidding. It's an evening for it, apparently.
But anyway, I wanted to draw the Fantastic Four, and then I discovered Harvey Picar's American Splendor and Chester Brown's Yummy Fur, and I realized that comics could be about your life. They could be about anything you desired or created, not just Marvel and DC characters, which I also love.
So you were lucky enough to get to work with Harvey Picar, and I believe it was on American Splendor. Is that right?
On American Splendor, and then I was the guy that talked to Ted Hope, who I was an assistant to, a movie producer named Ted Hope, who then went on at my behest and making the connection between Ted Hope and Harvey Picar, and they went off to make the American Splendor movie, which I also contributed to, which is a great film to this day. But going back a little bit in time, in my senior year of high school in 1985, I became an assistant not just for one amazing cartoonist, but three. I started off as an assistant to Bill Sienkiewicz, and we worked on New Mutants and Elektra Assassin. And I also worked with Walt Simonson on Thor, and with Howard Chaykin on American Flag. And suffice to say, that was a real turning point for me, because that was like comics college in a nutshell.
Yeah. Murderer's Row of creative names. Nope. Dean?
You can still hear me?
There you go. So, yeah, you came back.
So you know what? I mean, if you think it's a weather thing, we did have bad weather here, but I don't know if that's the case,
I don't know. Where are you coming to us from?
Brooklyn, New York?
Brooklyn, New York.
Yeah.
Chad's right up the road from you in Syracuse, or close to Syracuse, I should say.
Oh, yeah. I've never been there.
Upstate New York.
So, and where are you, Matt?
I'm in Oklahoma City.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I
Okay.
am right smack dab at the buckle of the Bible Belt.
Oh wow. Oh
It's
man.
it's fun to be liberal here.
Yeah. Well, you're a true liberal then, man, because it's easy to be a liberal in New York.
Sure, sure. You just walk outside, bang, you're a liberal.
It's all good. So anyway, I then I collaborated with a writer named Martin Powell in Kentucky, and we created a character called The Verdict from Marvel and DC. For doing my own comics, I did a lot of web comics.
Mhm.
I founded a thing called Activate on the LiveJournal blogging platform, where a bunch of us cartoonists published, free web comics for a couple of years on that platform. And then, I created the Red Hook that was published at Webtoon, and I had this character called Billy Dogman Jane Legit, and it was pretty easy to, some for them, some for me, right? Like
Right.
get a gig working, at Marvel and DC. I would get a little bit.
The internet does not like us tonight, Chad.
It does not. I'm sorry. I had to run take care of something really quick downstairs.
Okay,
So.
that's okay. Dean, can you hear us? Because we cannot hear you. Oh dear, Chad, what are you thinking?
A little bit. I don't know.
Do we want to reschedule with Dean? Uh-oh, we lost him completely. So, Chad, tell us all about your comics origin. Hopefully, Dean comes back.
Well,
I was born a poor black boy.
yeah. Were you serious about asking me about my?
I was hoping our guest makes his
Yeah.
way back, but
Oh, so you were vamping.
absolutely. When am I not vamping, dude? Man, so yeah, strangest thing though, I was starting to do my research on Dean Haspiel, and for the life of me, I kept thinking he was Mark Hamill. Hey, we can see him. Hold on, I got him. Dean,
What is
we can
happening?
see you
We can see you now.
and hear you.
I've been seeing you guys, and now you can see me. Who is it? My end? Is it
I
Oklahoma?
think it's your end.
I mean, it's possible because we don't have the best weather here right now, so
Okay.
it's very possible.
All right,
Sorry
we got
about
this.
that.
So that's okay. So you were telling us about the Red Hook and
Well, I'd hopscotch between doing print comics and doing web comics. I'd say the majority of my creator-owned stuff started off as a web comic, okay, and then they find their way into print. And at one point, I felt like there really were two different audiences, and that may still be the case. But I think more people now read web comics or digital comics or PDFs or whatever you want to call it these days.
Mm-hmm.
Especially now that with the rising costs and distribution woes of print comics that are starting to happen a little bit more. Not only the fear of tariffs, but what's going on with Diamond right now.
Yeah,
Diamond,
yeah,
and
absolutely.
for the people who are listening, you probably are a comic fan, or you probably wouldn't be listening. But I think that they also have heard the news about, arguably one of the biggest comics distributors, and definitely for a long time the biggest. They monopolized.
Yeah.
And then I think when the pandemic hit, I'm sure you guys have talked about this. DC went over to a different distributor. I think Marvel did as well. And then but what was important also about Diamond was that Diamond was distributing a lot of small press publishers,
Yes.
including like an IDW and a Dark Horse. And now they're having tough times. I think anybody with an office is having a tough time.
Mm-hmm.
you got to pay that overhead, right?
Yeah.
So, and I've been kickstarting comics the last 2 years now, and my overhead is the studio that I share and my home, and that's about it, like, and even then, living in Brooklyn, the most expensive place on planet Earth, it's not easy, right? So I've been living off the skin of my nose with these Kickstarters, but thank God it was an experiment. I was trying to figure out, like, can I do this? I know other people did it really well, and one could argue that Kickstarter is the third biggest publisher of comics right now.
Yeah.
Uh, I mean, there's Marvel, DC, then it was Image, but even so, there's so many Kickstarters and so many crowdfunded comics that it's kind of nuts. It's cool, and it's hard maybe to get seen, but there is an ecosystem, there is a culture of creating comics in that way, and also people craving comics like that, so I don't know. I mean, what's your buying habits? Do you go to the comic shop once a week still? I haven't done that in years.
I do it every 2 weeks. I would be a weekly guy, but I'm also very impulsive, and I find that limiting myself to only going on payday helps me curb my spending habits a little bit.
You and Sam Cooke, baby. It's just another Saturday night.
That's right. You got it.
Yeah.
But I love the social aspect of the comic store. I mean, I work there on the weekends, so I have to love
Oh, cool.
it. I'd be miserable.
Right.
And but it's just, I mean, it's not only what I've always done. It's what I love. It's what I feel comfortable with. I love going in there and just bullshitting about comics, sports, movies, whatever with the other regulars. And it's kind of like, it's its own little Cheers in its own way.
Yeah, it's funny. I miss that aspect the most. Is that, like, lack of a better term, the water cooler, talk aspect of going to a comic shop, debating whatever about the new comics that come out, the business, the industry, creators, what's going on in the world. But it has, moved over to the internet. Like, you can find those conversations like what we're doing right now, for instance,
Mhm.
but there's nothing beats being live and direct in a room together around a whole bunch of comic books, right? So I do, like I said, I do miss that kind of that culture. What about you, Chad? Do you still go to the comic shop?
I still go to the comic shops, but I've had to drastically uh, cut back my comic purchases over the past couple years. And I'm big on Kickstarter, and if I see something there that looks interesting, or I have a friend that is doing a project, I'll be sure to support them.
Well, that's
So,
very
but
helpful, man.
but I still have I still talk to all the comic book shops owners up here in Albany, New York. Um, So, and I still have some good friends that whenever I see them at the local shows, then it's nice to catch up with them and stuff like that.
Yeah, man. I mean, but what do you have any predictions or feelings about 2025 in terms of the industry and the output, and, like, I mean, it's going to be pretty dramatic, I think. I mean, comics, a 22 to 24 page Marvel and DC comics probably going to go up to $5. It's already
Yeah.
$4. It's
Yeah.
already, like, I can't afford that. If I know of a story, like I read the first issue of the New Gods, and I loved it, right? But I might be waiting for the trade, to be honest.
Well, for me in that regard, it's a lot easier to wait for the trade when I know it's a miniseries.
Right.
Right. Like, I've got a lot of comics.
Yep.
And
yes, you do.
I need to be cautious of my space, and because having just moved in December, I assure you I'm getting too old for this shit. And it does influence the being able to eventually buy it down the road in a trade. Definitely influences my decisions in a lot.
How do you feel about I feel like every comic I've ever bought and then read, and there's some I haven't read yet that's on a pile and I need to someday, I feel ownership, like I need to own it for the rest of my life, usually, unless it's very rare that I've read a comic. I'm like, what a piece of garbage, and I want to tear it in half or throw it away. But what I really should be doing is, and this is the hard part, and I'm talking about this like almost in a therapy session, okay, like with you guys, because my home, at least you're organized, man. Like my home is a hoarder's wet dream. It's like a disaster zone of comics and DVDs and CDs and Blu-ray and like
Mhm.
media, right? Everywhere. And at my age, am I really going to revisit most of that stuff? No, I'm not realistically. Do I want a better quality of life where I actually go experience things outside of the media? I'd love to. But the question is, what do I keep? That even
Yeah.
what I keep, I may not ever crack open again, you know?
Right.
And what is the deciding factor? And it's so hard because I have amassed a lot of comics. You know, I mean, yes, I'm not looking at it. So out of sight, out of mind. But the minute you put it in my face, I'm like, I can't let go of that. I can't let go of that. What am I doing? Do
Yeah.
you guys, did you ever have that kind of purge at all, ever?
I've purged my collection a couple times. The returns are diminishing because for those very mental healthy reasons that you just described.
Yeah.
And now I've got almost 60 long boxes. So,
Right. Right. I
yeah.
mean,
Chad, what
and
about
and
you?
and
I have a
I
storage
don't
unit.
have a storage unit. Yeah. Yeah, I actually have a storage unit in the Catskills from a previous situation I was in, and there was a lot of comic books in there, and I'm like, do I just not pay the bills anymore? Then they can do with it what they want, you know? But I need to know what's in there. I need to see so I can pull like out of a fire like the ones that really are meaningful and then add them to the other giant pile I have of the ones that are really meaningful. You know, at one point I was tricking my mind into thinking, okay, what is actually my favorite era of, let's just say, Marvel Comics, right? And I would hazard it's the first 25 years. And I was like, well, when does that really end? And I figured, oh, it ends maybe at the first Secret Wars.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
that stuff, right? And let that be my, Ross Andrew was probably my first Spider-Man artist, and but it, I just don't know where to draw the line because then after that, there's tons of great comics like Mark Waid and um, uh, Mike Rowingo's Fantastic Four run,
Yeah.
and other runs that are post Secret Wars. There's so many.
Anything
So
by
I
Grant
can
Morrison? I mean, well, we were talking about Marvel. Yeah.
no, but or you can go absolute to DC too, of course, man.
Sure. Sure.
Like,
I would keep
but then
my.
it doesn't end. It just doesn't end.
I definitely have to keep my full run of Animal Man because when I first, it was probably 15 years ago or so that I actually found out about the character. Then I was like, I got to get all these issues, and so now I have the full run, and then
Okay,
I.
so that's interesting you say that because I'm going to show you something. So I was just talking to a friend of mine about Gold Key comics, and I didn't really read Gold Key comics, right? But I was aware of, because of Valiant, actually, I was aware, and I didn't read the Valiant ones either, but I was aware of Solar, um, Magnus, right? All those characters. But I wasn't really aware of this guy, Mighty Samson.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with him.
It's so cool. It's written by Otto Binder, and it is
Really?
Binder, not Binder, who wrote, a lot of your Captain Marvels, and drawn by Thorne. What's his name? Frank Thorne, who you might know more from Red Sonja and like maybe more like sexy comics.
Oh,
But like
really? Okay.
art's really cool. I mean, the first panel is like an apocalyptic, New York City kind of a thing, and it's right up my alley. And the thing that was intriguing to me as I was reading it, and it's a little corny, but it's beautiful art, right? And
Sure.
that flat, simple coloring that I cherish so much. What I liked about this is I looked it up, and there are only 32 issues of Mighty Samson. That I can, then that's it. It ends. It's done.
Right.
Yeah, maybe somebody could reboot it. Maybe I could reboot it or whatever if somebody's interested. But I love the idea of a comic that ended because most comic books never end.
Right.
At least the popular ones. Spider-Man will never end. Fantastic Four will never end, and that's great. And
Well, we
that's
talked about this last week.
what he did.
Superhero comics are perpetually stuck in their second act. Well, the
Yes,
origin is the first act,
right.
and then everything after the origin is the second act.
That's
And
right.
there will never be a third act unless Marvel or DC goes under.
Exactly. And because even when you die, you come back, right? So
Sure,
like
absolutely.
death is not a third act, right? So in fact, they might be. I wonder if you could even hazard that maybe comics have invented the fourth act. Maybe there have been third acts, but that's also as big as a second act, or what deems a second act into a third act anyway, you know? So
Right.
it is nonstop, and it really comes down to when you decide to just check out, right? For yourself. For
Right.
mental health reasons, you know, like I mean, that's what I love about a movie. I do love TV shows, but like, what's his name? Norman Reedus, is he the one who plays Daryl Dixon?
Yes.
Yeah.
He's going to play that dude till the day he dies. That's it. He's never getting hired again. And I did just watch that Daryl Dixon 6-part Walking Dead, which
Mhm.
went to Paris. Did you guys see that?
I saw
I,
the first episode, and then life happened, and I haven't seen it picked up on it.
Chad?
I stopped watching Walking Dead like years
Okay, so
ago.
you're done. I gotta say, I did watch all the Walking Deads, and you know, hit or miss. It was a big deal, right?
Sure, yeah,
Um,
the biggest.
and then there were like spin-offs. We're going to do this and this and this. And I was like, maybe I can end it right here. But recently, I noticed that Daryl Dixon showed up on my TV set. I'm like, how? I guess, was it Netflix or something? Got some of these shows. And I'm like, because it was an AMC show, right? So I was like, and I didn't
Yeah.
have AMC. So I went, you know what? Let's check out the first episode. It's pretty damn good, man. It was a good 6-episode story. You know, they figured it out. But it did occur to me that dude, and then he did a second season. I think they're going to do a third season.
Mhm.
He's going to play that guy forever. I swear. And that's
Why
cool.
not?
And that's an interesting thing. But that reminds me of comic books, you know, like no matter who's writing it or drawing it, and no matter how much they change here or whatever, costumes, hairstyles, powers, roles, it is insane like how this perpetuates, you know? And I've been questioning lately, why is it every 4 weeks? Like, slow it down, man.
Hmm.
You know, and maybe it's a business thing
Sure.
because, like, out of sight, out of mind again. You know, like if you don't see the next issue for a few months, you might not pick it up. So maybe it's the idea of like, oh, we're back. You know,
Routine.
yeah, it's like habitual at that point. You know, it's like crack almost. You know, so anyway, you guys get a chance to read Chest Face?
I did. I really
Yes.
enjoyed it. I went into it utterly blind, and I'm glad I did, because if someone had tried to describe it to me, I would have given them a very confused look. And I mean that in the most loving way possible, because there's no way to fit this story into an easy box.
Well, that's good, I think, because
Oh,
well,
absolutely.
well,
It's
thank
so
you.
idiosyncratic.
I I really appreciate that. The first 6 pages I did first, that appeared in a Spider Squirrel and Trash Panda volume that Charlie McElvey of Zion Press publishes. And I just wanted to create a character for Zion, and I like Charlie and that whole universe. And we were talking about like crossing over our characters, like the Red Hook that I have, and other
Mhm.
characters and his characters, and then Vito Del Sante has a character called Stray, and just kind of doing that thing where you don't have to ask permission, really. You just kind of enter each other's, spaces, and
Yeah,
have fun
you're
with that,
just
and it's an
gonna walk over
independent
to the next
thing,
sandbox.
basically, right? And everybody knows I own this, you own that. It doesn't matter. Is it a fun story? Is it a fun little crossover meeting or something? Anyway, I didn't get as far as doing like a Red Hook crossover, not yet. But I was like, well, let me create a character, and then I just off the top of my dome, I was like, I want to do the Thing is my favorite character of the Fantastic Four, right?
Mhm.
It's my favorite superhero character. And I was like, well, let me do a version of my Thing, even though it's not, because I would still probably do some kind of Gollum character if I was to really think about what my Fantastic Four would be or my Thing. But I was like, let me play a little bit with, shape and size and sensitivity and sensibility. But let me also goof off on it as well. So I came up with Chest Face, a comedian who is at some point was went to the wrong blood donation clinic, because then he gets, and I don't even show this, I actually just say it, that basically he got kidnapped by some evil corporation is trying to create superheroes like their own Captain Americas, they botched the experiment on him, and then they were supposed to 86 him, right? Like put him in the trash. Somehow he escaped. He's being chased by hired mercenaries by the evil corporation to try to eradicate their mistake, erase their mistake. He keeps dodging them, and yet he's kind of this formidable character, but he's also trying to finish his 1 hour TV special by, you know, running to the different, like, you know, doing different sets. And that's part of what the story is, you know? So I did the first 6 pages. People seemed to like it and they wanted more. So then I combined the 6 with 18 new pages, came up with this one shot. And the greatest compliment I feel like I've gotten is that people are like, I want more. I want to read more of this character.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the best that you can ask for, right?
Sure.
So I think I got to come up with some more. We'll see
And
what
that was your latest Kickstarter, am I correct?
That was my latest Kickstarter. And as of a few days ago, I feel like I have delivered all the books to all the backers. So, and I'll be at a Comic-Con in a week or so, Cosmic Con New York. I think that's the 15th and the 16th, Saturday and Sunday, in about a week or so of this month. And it'll be the first time I'm actually selling that comic at a table for non-backers, because it's great to get your backers, your initial kind of like, all right, here's my people, right? And then you go and try to sell it for the rest of the year. Now I don't have my comics in comic shops right now because I haven't figured out a retail version of this, because distribution, retail, like you get less and less and less from the cover price, and I'm living off the cover price right now, basically. And then the shows I do and maybe some commissions and the occasional little gig here and there. This is my 4th Kickstarter. I've been dubbing it my deep cut universe of characters. Even though they've had other homes, original homes, like the Red Hook, like I said, was a webtoon and then published by Image Comics. I have this character from 1995 called Billy Dogma that I visit once in a while. And then in 2 or 3 years ago, I created COVID Cop as a response to the pandemic. And that's probably going to be the next one I do, is because I wrote the 2nd issue a year and a half ago. And then I decided to do a couple other things plus Chest Face. Oh, and then the Red Hook times Dean Haspiel. That's another Kickstarter, which is a meta memoir. And we can talk about that as well.
Yeah.
But I've been trying to just dive into this experimental phase of being a self-publisher, and just kind of putting out my pantheon of characters and see how people respond. And then figure out, okay, if there's a good response and I'm able to be as creative as I want to be, now I got to figure out the business of it for real, so I don't know if a floppy comic is going to be the thing that I try to get into stores. Maybe it'll be something with a spine, luckily there was other comics in the stores over the years that recommend me, so you can add my stuff to that shelf if you have one,
Yeah.
So anyway, I don't know. It's still a big question mark, and I'm constantly learning and keeping my ear to the news for the industry, and also what people are also doing. Like, being a freelancer is synonymous with being an innovator of some sorts, and it comes with a lot of failures and mistakes and some successes. So as much as I often freak out a few times a week about what am I doing and why, right? I got to stick to my guns and hope for the best and talk to guys like you and whoever watches this show,
Right on. So, who outside of comics would you consider an influence?
Well, I love theater. I love movies.
Yeah. You got some theater in your background.
Yeah, I wrote 4 produced plays, and I've written a couple other plays, and I'm thinking I'd like to try and direct one myself, because I want to have that experience. I went to film school. I would love to make a movie. I've made a couple of short films, but I'd like to make a feature film. And actually, with the tools we have today, even with our phones, we can do this more than ever, But in terms of influences, I mean, in comics, it'd probably be like, I just love Frank Miller, Jack Kirby, C.C. Beck, Chester Brown, obviously Chaykin, Simon Sienkiewicz when I was 17 going on 18, but outside that, like I love there's this amazing I've never seen the play version, but it was an amazing movie called Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, written by Edward Albee, directed by Mike Nichols, starring Richard Burton and Elizabeth Taylor and a couple other actors. And I revisit that movie at least once a year, and it's incredible. And again, it's based on a play. It's basically a play, you know.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I don't know if you ever seen that. It's incredible.
I've heard
It's
I've heard of it.
it's influenced me in that, like, it's something that whenever I'm writing a play, let's say, I know it'll never be like this play by Edward Albee that I love, but I do think about it in terms of quality, in terms of, you know, what it does, and trying to capture that in my own work, you know, like uh I think the stuff that influences us is the stuff that inspires us, right? So, you know, I'm inspired by Edward Albee and his words and the way he structures a scene and a dialogue. And listen, Quentin Tarantino, one of the greatest DJ of cinema, right?
Mhm.
Uh, he's basically writing plays. A lot of them are plays. There's a lot of talking, a lot of voguing, you know, and mugging and standing around. But then he adds cinema to it by figuring out how to make it a movie as well, you know.
Yeah.
Uh, the
Perhaps
Coen Brothers, Martin
surprising.
Scorsese, you know.
Yeah.
So, how's your experience, with playwriting? How's that kind of translated into comics, or is comics translated into, your
I don't
playwriting?
translate comics. I don't translate comics into my playwriting, except that some of the absurdity of the genres of comics, which is just genre, it doesn't have to be comics, just genre. I do like to do hybrids of genres, you know, like that's something that maybe I learned or was inspired by, you know, people like Tarantino, who I feel does that as well, you know. I just like having fun with that. As much as I have drawn real life stories, including my own and other people's, like Harvey Picard and other folks, I do feel like you can be more true through fiction because of the emotional truths. You know, yes, you can write and draw a memoir, and it can be totally factual, and this is how it happened, and you try to figure out how to with hindsight, you know, tell that story. But I feel like I have a better time doing stuff like that with fiction. I feel like I can insert myself even more into a fictional story or fictional characters.
And that makes sense. There's something in going back to Chess Face. The fact that he's a stand-up comedian, there's something that he says that really stuck with me, and that's that all comedians are chasing the high of the first time that they made an entire room full of strangers laugh. And like, for whatever reason, that just really struck me as poetic. And
Thanks. And you know, I heard, I listened to WTF, Mark Maron's podcast, right? So he has lots of comedians on, and that was the initial first couple of years of his podcast, was him like making amends for being such a jerk to everybody. He would have him on the show and try to break bread, right? But a lot of comedians always talk about, because I'm not a comedian, I'm not a stand-up comedian. I've never done that in my life. But I've heard enough from comedians, and I know comedians, and I've heard the same thing over and over again, is the first time they made somebody laugh, and maybe it was unexpected, or they couldn't believe that they got someone to laugh, or whatever it was, they've been chasing that first laugh ever since, you know, almost like a lightning in bottle type moment, you know.
Right.
And so I wanted to have Chess Face acknowledge that as well. You know, that's one of the things he's striving for. And it's not that you're ever going to get that first laugh, and you might get better laughs after that. It's just that initial, like, whoa, there's a power to that. There's a power in communicating an idea and getting a reaction, negative and positive, you know? So I think I was highlighting that.
yeah, no, it's a really striking line of dialogue. So yeah, whatever your muse was for that, be it Mark Maron or otherwise,
Right. Thank you.
yeah,
Thank you.
you really captured something there.
Well, I was trying to create the verisimilitude of knowing what I'm talking about, but also at the same time, I feel like a lot of what I wrote in Chest Face, you can apply it in comedian terms, but it's just people. It's just about people. We all can relate to, a janitor, a plumber. I can't really relate to a superhero, but maybe I can relate, for better or for worse, to a cop. So someone with a sense of authority, or I've been a dishwasher, like it doesn't matter. That doesn't make you who you are. It's what circumstances bring out. How do you behave, And then you put a character, the way I write it sometimes is I'll create an idea of a character and then I'll put them in a situation to find out who they are,
Yeah, that makes the most sense to me. You hear it's kind of an old chestnut that writers will say, "Oh, I had no idea where this character's arc was going until they told me." Blah, blah,
They
blah.
told me.
And yeah. So
And you got to be open. Although I was listening to an interview with Jeff Johns, I think yesterday, the great writer Jeff Johns, and who's now one of the publishers and creators of Ghost Machine Comics, which I've luckily done some covers for, thankfully. He was saying, or someone was saying about his work, and I think he agreed, that the way he writes, it might have been him, is he has to know what the story is about. And then he'll know how to write the characters to get to tell what it's about. And often I don't know what my story is about because I need to write through it and get through it,
Mhm.
And that's where it can change and surprise you, but I do agree that, not that you need to know your ending, but when you know your ending, it's easier to figure out how to get there, or at least put up the obstacles and figure out how to navigate around the obstacles.
Right.
But I
is,
feel like I have more.
he is. Now we
Yeah,
got all the stops in the middle.
right, and I just feel like I have more fun not knowing that ending.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, that might just be my process. Do you guys write comics?
No. No,
Nope.
I don't draw either.
Yeah.
Good for you.
It's been a while. I found I'll have an idea, and I'll write that idea, and then I'll hit the wall. It's like, shit, where do I go with the idea now? and that's that. And I now I run a comic book site and write reviews and tell
Right.
people like Chad what to do. No, not
Well,
really.
Mark Waid, when he was writing Daredevil, I think he said that he would leave it on a cliffhanger,
Mm-hmm.
that he didn't know what was happening next issue. So
Yeah.
when he picked up writing the next issue after writing like 2 other comics, probably, then he got back to the next issue of Daredevil, he'd be like, "Oh my God, what a pickle I put this character into," and then figure out how to get them out of it, so that you too, the reader, when you read that cliffhanger, you'd be like, "What the how's he gonna get out of this? What's gonna happen next? I got to find out next issue,"
Well, I think and that's what I liked about this is a couple of years ago when they did the Commandy Challenge, where they had one set of creators write an issue, but they would leave it open, and the next a new you know group would pick it up, and
Yeah.
kind of like the original DC Challenge, which I guess kind of fizzled.
It's kind of like an Exquisite Corpse, like a more elaborate Exquisite Corpse, which, if you know what that, or no, sorry, a narrative corpse, I think it's called. Exquisite Corpse is different, but it's the idea of, like, the short version is you have a couple of panels, and then you respond to the last panel, and then you do a couple of panels, and someone responds to your last panel, and then a whole bunch of people do that, and then you read this story that kind of works, but it's also just ridiculous.
Yeah.
So, but I do like those experiments.
So
Say it again.
and it's a bit like playing telephone, only with
totally. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about Red Hook first, or Red Hook and Dean Haspiel? I mean, you said it was a metaphysical biography, autobiography.
Yeah, basically that's the long version. A meta mem noir. So like meta memoir noir, right? So I kind of came up with this idea where it wasn't a case of where the creator meets the creation, which technically happens in the comic because it's just physically what happens, but it's not what they talk about. And I wanted to kind of like, and I explained this once before, but part of what inspired the story idea was that that scene in American Splendor, the movie, where Paul Giamatti and Judah Friedlander, who are playing Harvey Pekar and Toby Radloff, respectively, are doing a scene, and then they end the scene, and you hear cut, and then you realize they're making a movie, and the two actors walk in like this weird white space with props, and there's the real Harvey and the real Joyce and the real Toby, and they kind of cross over, and they're in the same room together, and you're like, what is happening? There's this weird hybrid of lifting the veil and just showing like that there are real people here, and we've already seen the real Harvey and Joyce talking throughout the movie, but now they're actually occupying the same space without exploding, and I was like, well, let me do something. I want to do something like that. And then I also thought about the idea of, instead of Peter Parker becoming Spider-Man, what if Spider-Man became Peter Parker? And what if instead of Peter Parker, it was Peter Pekar, right? So I'm thinking Peter Parker, Harvey Pekar. So I'm starting to mess with my own head. And I was trying to figure out, how can I do a 24-page comic where I reintroduce the idea of the Red Hook to a story that happened at some other, because I did 4.5 seasons of the Red Hook on Webtoon, and I'm probably going to hopefully publish like an omnibus or 2-part omnibus or something. But I need to find a moment somewhere in that bigger story where I was like, well, let me take this little time period right here and have and kind of just do like not a teaser, not a taste test, but just like, for readers who already enjoyed the comic and new readers, something that they could chew on, and then maybe make them want to go read the bigger story, right? But also honor the people who already know the bigger story.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, well, let me insert myself in here, and let me do a speculative memoir where I insert a version of my character in there, and we live in multiverses right now anyway, so okay, fine, people can get that idea. But let me put myself in a situation that has never happened, but I would try to tell a story as honestly as I could, what I think what would happen, or how I would behave in a situation like that. And then on top of it, toward the very end, I insert an actual memoir comic that actually happened to me, as I tell a story about something about me that really happened. So it becomes like this multi-level thing, but you should read really smooth, right? It shouldn't be confusing. And I don't think it was. Chad, did you get a chance to read it? I don't remember.
I did. No, I did, and I picked it as an honorable mention for
Yes,
one of the
that's
best
right.
comics for.
Right. Thank you.
I kind of like that concept, and that's why it kind of really stuck out to me. And it was very smooth and easy to follow, especially if I can follow it.
Thank you. So you're the guy, should be my reader, make sure that things work. But no, I was trying to keep it like fun, a little weird, a little offbeat, but if you're paying attention, it should be an easy story to digest, ultimately. And then I threw in there a gay ghost love story is in there as well. I mean, and I think it works, So there's a lot of layers to it, and I feel like I was able to pack a pretty good 24-page comic with a lot of stuff to think and care about and feel entertained by, And the same thing with Chest Face, just like you said, how do you describe Chest Face? It's a little hard, You try to find that one sentence, but a sentence doesn't do it justice.
And it's only one issue and 28 pages or so, but you're still getting a lot of story there and a lot of bang for you're taking the time to read it, or if you purchased it or like that.
Right. Well, thank you. Thanks, man.
Yeah.
And then same thing with COVID Cop. And like I said, I have 2 more parts I want to do, and it really evolves and gets so much fun, the COVID Cop story. My only issue that I might be facing is, do I still call it COVID Cop? What's your feeling? Would that turn you off if you saw? And it does polarize people.
I don't know about well, if it's going to polarize people, I mean, at least it's going to trigger the people that probably wouldn't like it anyway.
True.
So
Yeah, they wouldn't be open to it,
no
right?
appreciation for art.
Right.
So yeah, dude, go for it.
Okay. I mean, I'm trying to come with a compromise and figure out how to get it on the cover, but maybe I call it the character's real name, which is Lincoln Bio, which is my joke on Lincoln Bio, but Lincoln Bio, like so is that good? And a COVID cop crusade mystery or something? I don't know, whatever. I'll figure it out. But it's been one of the things that I'm like stuck on. Is like, but COVID didn't go away.
No,
We still have it here.
it's still with us.
I was a little worried, like, oh, not worried. I mean, it should go away. I would love for it to go away. But I was like, oh, that's going to be a dated term, but it's not.
It's not.
Yeah, it's still about.
Yeah, man. So yeah, those are the 4 comics I did. Was COVID Cop, this Billy Dogma collection, which I was pretty proud of. In fact, it's right up here. Wait, here. And then the Red Hook X Dean Haspiel, and then recently Chestface. So I'm still trying to figure out like next steps in terms of like, do I keep crowdfunding? I know some people do it all the time and are really successful at it, and if nobody is going to balk at it, and now I'm actually showing up and I'm hopefully delivering quality product in a timely manner, then what's not to love, right?
Right. Yeah, you're out there
That's
living
going to
the
be my question. I mean, how did you see people returning to from previous campaigns?
Right.
When you
So
were doing Chest Face?
I would say that my most recent one, I knew less people on that campaign, which is awesome. It means that somehow they're finding out about it, and they're checking it out. And maybe that means that they're only getting this, but they haven't gotten the other stuff. So they might just be testing the waters. Who knows? I'll find out. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely some regulars, thank God, that I have like a little bit of a base. Is it enough to live in Brooklyn and just do 2 or 3 comic books a year? No. But I don't know, even if I could produce 1 comic every 3 months, let's say, can I do 4 Kickstarters in a year? I don't even know if I want to do that. And then it's the mailing and the packaging, and trust me, that takes a lot out of you. Like
Zoop.
and there's Zoop. I have talked to them, but I would do Zoop. I think I wouldn't do a comic book with Zoop. I would do a book with Zoop.
Yeah.
Because that's just a different economy, and so I have talked to them, and maybe that's where my Red Hook omnibus will happen. Who knows?
There you go.
And that's another thing. Like, I've written plays. I might want to try to publish some plays, but that's not the comic book market. That's a whole other realm that I'd have to figure out. So I don't know. I've been doing a podcast now with my buddy Vito Del Sante, who I think some of you Chad, do you know Vito at all? He does Stray.
Name's familiar.
Okay, Matt, I don't know if you've heard of Vito.
No, I'm afraid not.
So we've been doing I've known him for years. He used to work at Jim Hanley's Universe back in the day, which is now JHU Comics. And that was one of the bigger comic shops right across the street from the Empire State Building in New York City. Wow. And he's written a bunch of, mainstream comics. We did a Batman adventure story together, a couple other things. And we've been having our own little podcast. And I do think, like, with Substack, Patreon, Instagram, even with all the bad guys trying to infiltrate through our social media, even with that, we do have these platforms and tools right now that, if we can just stay ahead of everything and be able to use them to perpetuate, I hate to use the word brand, but to brand ourselves and to show up and be our own entrepreneurs more than ever. I don't mind working and participating with a publisher or distributor. It just has to be the right relationship. And I don't know what that is yet, because I'm still in this experimental phase of me showing up to my own party right now,
Right. Do you have any other Kickstarters in the works
maybe COVID Cop 2? That's not gonna be the title, but let's just call it that,
Right.
And like I said, maybe through Zoop or somebody, I might do like a Red Hook thing, or maybe through a publisher. I have a couple of publishers that are interested in Red Hook. And I need to figure out when's the best time to pull that trigger. And I don't know. I need to. I'm still, you know, reading the tea leaves, as it were.
Sure.
Like trying to figure out what makes sense next. So, but I do know that like whatever I do, it'll probably be pretty good. I think.
Mm-hmm.
I'm.
I have.
So go ahead.
Well, no, that was
No,
literally all.
I was
I
gonna
can show you a
say
little
like
something before you ask that question. I can show you a little sneak peek to something. So I can't show you this other side. It's too nude, too naked. I am writing and drawing an 8-page story for another Kickstarter that is starting, I think, February 13th,
Mm-hmm.
called Aerotech, like erotic, but tech, Aerotech.
Okay.
It's a really cool comic. It's going to be an anthology. And I'm going to be writing and drawing an 8-page story with a character that looks something like, oops, that.
Cool.
All right. So that's all I can say. I know it's just like a weird visual teaser. But so I am working. That's on my art table right now. Is doing that for this anthology. That if you look it up on Kickstarter, I think Aerotech would be easy enough to find it.
so that kind of I guess answers part of my next question. But when you're working, do you work you know traditional, hybrid, digital?
Let me see. Do I have anything to show you here? Uh, I work pen and ink on paper, man. Pencil and ink. Here's a Dum Dum Dugan commission I did on paper, and that was pencil and ink on that. That's the way I learned how to make comics, and that's how I'm going to keep making comics. A lot of my friends figured out how to do the digital iPad drawing, plastic on plastic. I don't like that. It doesn't feel right. I do have an iPad that a friend of mine got me, and I need to maybe experiment, and maybe I could create a project that would work in that way. Like I said, I've written plays, and I feel like maybe I could maybe adapt one of my plays into a graphic novel that I would draw digitally or something, especially since it's a lot of talking heads. And if you guys are familiar with Kyle Baker's
Mm-hmm.
Why I Hate Saturn,
Yeah.
look at that book again. It's incredible for many reasons, but the format, the way he drew it, is a very stylized way of like lots of close-ups of gestures, faces, and then the dialogue is separate. And I'm thinking about using a version of that format for maybe trying to adapt one of my plays, But
Interesting.
we'll see. Again, I need money. I need to live. I need the time. I need the readership for something like that, Um, you know, Dan Clowes was able to carve a path where he could just come out with a graphic novel every few years, maybe 5 years, and people want to read it no matter what it is, because he has created a certain sensibility that people like, and trust in. And as much as I try to toy with genre and be a superhero artist and do a memoir, I have this weird thing I do, my own hybrid. And I would love to be able to do a graphic novel that nobody knows anything about it and they just want to get it because I did it. And most likely they would probably enjoy it, I would hope, right? But I'm not there yet. And I don't know if I'll ever get there, because I don't know if you can create a new Dan Clowes today, you
Right.
know? I don't know, because things have changed so much,
Sure. Ain't the
So,
90s anymore.
nope. And there's such great alternative comics in the 90s. I mean, Bob Fingerman's Minimum Wage, Jessica Abel's Art Babe, Joe Matt's Peep Show. You had Hate, Peter Bag's Hate. You
Yeah.
had
Looking
Happy
deep.
Novelty Library with Chris Ware. You had
Johnny
who we
the
were just
Homicidal
talking.
Maniac.
Who?
Johnny
Oh
the
yeah,
Homicidal
that's
Maniac.
right.
Dan Jonan.
That's right. That's right. So I mean, and they came out, a few times a year, each of those comics,
Yeah.
That was great. And it was a great way to balance, your Incredible Hulk, Iron Man, Batman with, these alternative comics. And it just opened up more and more. And it was so cool. And then the internet happened. Yeah.
The great
So
equalizer, for better or worse.
yeah.
So do you have any shows planned for this year? Because I know saw you. I didn't get to stop by and say hi to you in New York this past year. But are you planning on doing any shows or getting out there with Chess Space and
Oh yeah.
everything?
So in 2 weeks or a week maybe now, I'm going to be at a show in New York called Cosmic Con New York, and it's going to be February 15th and 16th, and I'm going to be on 2 panels there, as well as having a table selling Chess Face for the first time at a table, plus my other deep cut comics. Shortly after that, I'm going to be at IC3, which is Independent Comics Creators Con in Connecticut, which is starting to grow and get bigger, and I'm going to have a lot of great guests and a lot of great independent cartoonists. And I think that's a 1-day show, and I think that's the same weekend as Mocha back in New York. So I'll probably walk around Mocha on Sunday and do IC3 Saturday. And then shortly after that, I think in April is Bix, which is a Brooklyn Independent Comics show that Ainsley and Mitch at St. Mark's Comics puts on at Industry City in Brooklyn. And it's going to be a 2-day show now, and it's going to have panels and all kinds of stuff. So I'm really excited for that. That started off as like a whim, like 50 tables outside, in between 2 buildings at Industry City, and now it's growing exponentially. So it's becoming a pretty major Brooklyn comics show. Am I going to San Diego? It costs so much money to go to San Diego. And then after the first day, you just want to go to sleep for the next 3 days because it's too much. But there's a possibility maybe I would go to San Diego. I don't know. And then there's New York Comic Con. Am I going to try and do another 4 days in Artist Alley? Maybe. I am self-publishing. Maybe I should do it. I did okay. I've done okay the last 2 times I've done it. And it's just exhausting, And then my favorite show of the year is Baltimore Comic Con in Baltimore, obviously. That's a family show. I love that show. I love those guys. And they take great care of me and my peeps. And there might be another 1 or 2 in there sprinkled about, oh yeah, Kingston, New York. I'm going to be going to. So I am. I guess I am trying to sell some stuff here. I'm trying to hawk my wares.
Well, if you'd like to come upstate in July, I'm in charge of I wanted to put on by the library in Schenectady. So.
Oh really? Send me an invite, man. Maybe. I mean, Schenectady. How long is that drive from Brooklyn to there?
It's probably about 3 hours because
that's
I
easy.
have family who live in the Beacon area. So when I go to New York, I usually take the train from New York up there and beat my wife and kids. So
awesome. So please send me, email me. Okay.
Sure.
I appreciate that. And we'll see if we can make that work. So yeah, I mean, I might have forgotten 1 or 2 things, but I also think that what's cool about the smaller shows, like I've never done, what's it called that everyone says is the best show for artists? It's an indie show in Charlotte, North Carolina, I think. Heroes World, is that what it's called?
I think it's Heroes Con or Dragon Con. Heroes Con,
No,
Dragon
not
Con.
Dragon. I know Dragon. It's like I think Heroes is in the word. I hear that's a great show for artists. And I need to check that out at some point. So, and I've been invited to C2 E2 no,
in Chicago. Yep,
just
C2E2.
Chicago, but just a table. Like I'd have to get myself there and lodge myself. So we'll figure that one out. So yeah, I mean, the point is that there's a show every weekend. Okay, guys, and so if you show up, it might be worth your while because people do tend to want to do something on the weekends, and what's more, come on, comic books are the best thing in the world. So,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for hanging out with us this last hour, technical difficulties aside, which thankfully subsided.
Yes, thankfully.
Because we were worried for a minute there. But yeah, you really carved out a really cool niche for yourself, Dean, and I appreciate that.
Thanks, man.
I appreciate everything that you're doing for the industry, man. In doing so.
Well, I'll be the guinea pig for a little while longer.
Hey, keep it up, dude. Keep it up.
All right. Well, thanks, Matt. Thanks, Chad.
Absolutely. Yes. Dean Haspiel, everybody. Thank you for kicking it with us for this last hour. Chad, who do we have next week?
Mark Russell.
Mark
returns.
is returning. Awesome.
He's going to be talking about, he's doing some prose stuff where he takes like grim fairy tales and kind of puts his spin on them, which is always, they're really fun.
This is
Oh,
Mark's
that's cool.
third time on the show, so that's pretty awesome.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Awesome.
I like
All right.
that.
Well.
All right, guys. I'll see you later, man. Have a good night.
Haspiel, everybody. Have a good one. And until next time, he's Chad. I'm Matt. We're the Comic Watchers, and this is our show. Just remember, the world might happen to suck a little bit right now, but it doesn't have to entirely. Get out there, support your local comic store, support local art, and just be good to the next guy over there, because we need it really bad right now, more than ever. So until then, we'll see you next time.